Jehan Perera. He's joining us from Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka, and he's the Executive Director of the National Peace Council for Sri Lanka. And Mr. Perera, thank you very much for being with us here on TRT World. Now, why has the government of Sri Lanka brought forward this legislation now?
Well, one reason is that the government has come up with a report on the Easter bombings that took place in 2019. Now, that was an act that involved Muslim suicide bombers. It is actually the first time ever that Muslims have been accused in Sri Lanka of violence of that scale. We had a 30-year civil war between the Sri Lankan state and Tamil militants. But the Muslims were a third party. They were mostly a victim in that conflict. They never used violence. There's no history of violence where the Muslims are concerned. And after the end of the war in 2009, there was, again, no violence until this sudden extraordinary synchronized suicide attacks took place in 2019, on Easter 2019. And there were Muslims who did the attacks. Now, these Muslims who did the attacks, most of the suicide bombers, almost all of them, were coming from outside. They were well-educated Sri Lankans who had studied abroad. It's very hard for us to think that it was a homegrown attack, that it came out of the Muslim community itself. And also the targets were the Catholics. Muslims and Catholics in Sri Lanka don't have a problem. They are both minorities. They face common problems. But anyway, this factor has been used to now demonize the Muslims, to say the entire Muslim community is a security threat. And I see the ban on the burqa and the threat to close the 1,000 Muslim madrasas as being part of that attempt to demonize the Muslims and say that there is indeed another security threat. After the end of the war in 2009 against the Tamil rebels, now there's this new security threat which justifies emergency action and justifies national security being strengthened.
Well, looking on from outside, Mr. Perera, as you've laid out there very clearly, it does seem like a massive overcorrection by the government. Perhaps they do have some kind of issue with parts of the community. From what you've said, it doesn't seem as if there is much of an issue, but a massive overcorrection. So I do wonder, what is the political capital being gained by the leadership who's decided to bring this in? Is it a popular move among a country which is a Buddhist majority, as I understand?
Well, it is something where public opinion can be created if the political leadership who have been elected tell the people that there is indeed this security threat, then people are likely to believe it. Now, the fact is that at this time, the government is facing a lot of serious problems. There's a terrible economic problem we are facing. Our foreign exchange reserves are very low, and we are being forced to go to China for massive bailouts. We are refusing to go to the IMF because the IMF will ask for structural reform. So the economic situation is dire. And in addition, we are now facing human rights concerns in Geneva, where the Western-led international community is putting pressure on the Sri Lankan government with regard to what happened during the war and asking for accountability and for reforms to take place. Then there's also massive instances of corruption that have come out now. So the government is deeply troubled by this. And there are elections, provincial elections about to come. So in this situation, a government which has relied in the past, which came to power on the issue of violence and of its ability to protect the ethnic majority, the Sinhala population, I think this would, in a way, serve their interests because by doing this, they can strengthen themselves. They're passing new laws. There's a new law, a de-radicalization law that is being promoted at the moment. It is actually it can be quite draconian because it means that if there is suspicion that a person is either promoting violence in word or deed, or even promoting disaffection between the communities, that person can be detained by even a public officer, police military or public officer, and then taken before a magistrate after 24 hours. For 24 hours, that person can be held in custody. Within 24 hours, taken to a magistrate who can then commit that person for 1 year into a rehabilitation center. So this is a huge threat. I mean, this is a threat that can also silence dissent. So we are very concerned about this. Of course, this is just a proposal that has been made. One minister has made a proposal to cabinet. I'm hopeful that the cabinet will not pass it. And secondly, it has to go through parliament. And I'm hopeful that parliament will not pass it. And third, we always have recourse to our Supreme Court. And I'm hopeful that our Supreme Court will not take us on this course of seeing one community as such a security threat. We should embrace our Muslims. They have been very peaceful in our country. This one incident, which we can't even blame on our Muslim people. So my hope is that this will not go through.
Well, we will have to find out whether it does pass, Mr. Perera, but I do appreciate your time and thank you for laying that out. Jehan Perera there from the Sri Lankan National Peace Council. Thanks for being with us on TRT World.